Welcome. This is the DFA Spark series. It's a weekly webinar that brings inspiration and design innovation right to your very own homes. It's also a way to harness the sort of DFA community and bring that energy to everyone each week. So we really appreciate your coming today and joining us. I'm Kelly Costello, I'm the host. I've had my own design consultancy here in Chicago for the past 9 years. And before that, I was with Doblin, which is a design consultancy in Chicago that's now part of Deloitte. I'm really excited because we're bringing together two worlds, Design for America, which I've been part of since 2011 as a coach, and then a member of the advisory committee, and then also the Institute of Design, which wrote the Lead with Purpose report that we'll be discussing today. I'm an alum of the Institute of Design, and then I'm also adjunct faculty there. So I like that this seminar really brings together a diverse community every week. For Lead with Purpose, this report looks at design's central role in sort of helping companies and organizations build a vision, and then it also explores the changing role of designers in the world. You can download this at the Institute of Design website. Also, we'll be putting a link in the chat where you can go to it directly. This report was developed by graduate students at the Institute of Design, sort of working in collaboration with Silver Consultancy, which is here in the Chicago area. The sponsors are really wide-ranging. Capital One, Ford, GM, Ford, Google, Philips, VMLY&R, and then also Salesforce, which is the team that's going to speak with us today about the report and their perceptions of how it's had impact in their own lives, and then also with the role of designers in the world. So for Zoom best practices, right now everyone's muted during the presentation. If your video or audio starts to lag or break up, just turn your video screen off, and then that way you can kind of optimize for hearing the speakers. We'll use the chat feature to capture your questions, comments, any readings that you wanted to share with people. And then after we have finished the presentation, we'll review your questions during the Q&A. We'll be recording the webinar and then sharing it through the DFA and with the DFA network. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the Salesforce team, which will introduce themselves.
Great, thank you so much, Kelly. So first off, thank you so much for having us here. We're really excited to share our thoughts with you today. So we're a small team that's based in San Francisco, and our work is to really, inside Salesforce and the world, is to elevate the value, the mindset, and the practices about design. We're huge fans of DFA, and jumped at the chance to join forces with you here. We really believe that we're kindred spirits in our shared beliefs, and I think about how design can really help shape the world to be a better place. So thank you, Alden, Rebecca, Liz, for this opportunity, just to explore some of these really big ideas with you and kind of figure out how design fits into this crazy world at the moment, and what the future might or could or should look like. So yeah, hopefully it'll spark your interest, yeah, we'll have a good time. So as much as possible, I think we want this to be a conversation, so we want to get as many of your comments as possible as we go through this, and we want to hear from you. And thank you, Kelly, for moderating. This conversation isn't prescriptive. We don't have tools and recommendations for right here, right now. But together with you, we're really looking to explore the boundaries of design. So we want to think about how it could be, or how it can continue to grow, I think, and change and adapt to the world as these new needs evolve, and we need these new ways of thinking and making and doing, I think now more than ever. So in true design style, we'll be sharing a concept that's not fully formed, but we believe that we're onto something, and we believe that it's important. So we're looking forward to hearing what you think. But before we do that, I just want to do a round of introductions, so you know who you're talking with. So first off, I'm Justine. I lead our event strategy and love building relationships. I'll pass it off to Lauren.
I'm Lauren. I've been at Salesforce for 8 years now, working both as a communications design and art director and in creative strategy now.
I'm Elizabeth Miller. I'm a video and events producer.
And Madeline may be on mute, but she's with us also and is our developer of content.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. My name is Madeline. I've been working on this team for about just about a year, and I do content development.
Great. Okay, so we just move on. First and foremost, just want to say thank you to everyone. Your time is really precious, and we're really grateful to be able to share this with you, and explore with you and learn from you. Kelly has mentioned that we'll be pulling some of these ideas from the Lead with Purpose report that should be in the sidebar there, and this really looks at design's role in realizing executive vision and kind of design's role in the future. So, no homework is necessary, don't worry. You don't have to have read the report, but we hope you do get to have a look at it at some stage. So, okay, well, let's just get the show on the road and get into this. Pass it to you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, so this is the question that we keep coming back to. How can design improve our world? Now, that's a big question, but we're in a big moment in history, and we have this opportunity to think about this. But before we go into that, let's think about where we're at right now. We are on Zoom. We're probably at home. We're staring at a screen of some sort, attempting to connect with people beyond our homes and our neighborhoods. And of course, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. We all need to acknowledge that and know that we're living through a crisis right now. So we need to check in with ourselves about that and check in with each other.
Yeah, this question, how are you, has been coming up a lot on our team. And then we ask it again, how are you really? As we're really trying to, carve out space to check in and acknowledge what we're all going through, because even with the privilege that we have to continue working, to work from home, to have homes to shelter in, it is a crisis that we're going through. And it's thrown our entire world for a loop. And it's pretty hard to wrap my brain around just the sheer scale of this thing. The crisis has really ground many aspects of normal life to a halt. It's ramped up others. It's reshaped our relationships to place and to time and to the things that we buy from the store and the people that we walk past on the street. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is broken and that this pandemic is a wrench that's been thrown into a machine that was humming and whirring and going along smoothly beforehand. But and it sort of brings up moments where we may crave a return to the way that things were. But it's hard to imagine them doing so anytime soon, if ever again. And then the question that we've been knocking around a lot and that we're really left with is, should it? Honestly, when we think about it really closely, like the pandemic has surfaced a whole lot of brokenness that already existed before COVID came along, and exaggerated inequities and insufficiencies in the American system that have plagued communities for decades. It's revealed huge flaws in our healthcare system and the resilience of our global economy, in the government's ability to protect the most vulnerable people among us from physical and economic insecurity. But before we all get dragged down into a hopeless pit of despair for the state of the world, let's think about, what we want to do is really think about some of the beauty that's already come out of this and some that could. This crisis has finally helped us recognize what essential work really is. Our healthcare workers, our cashiers, educators, bus drivers, the people that support us in our lives. It's forced us to find new and creative ways to connect with each other, like DFAing up this Spark series is a perfect example. I don't know about you, but I've had more video conferences with far-flung family members in the past month than I'd ever had before. I've seen the insides of my colleagues' homes. I've met their kids. I've met their pets. To overcome all of this distance, we've really found new ways to hold each other close and found new forms of intimacy to depend on. And I think, there's a lot that we can learn from all of this, obviously. most of which we can't even pretend to know right now in this very moment. And you know, our team isn't going to sit here on this call and act like we know what all of those things are or should be. But what we really want to communicate and what we really want to think about is, like, you know, where can we go? Where could we go? How can design help us get there? You know, when things fall apart, we get a chance to put them back together again. And when we put them back together again, we can do it in a way that's better than it was before. You know, we can make choices, we can make things, we can make technology that include and protect and acknowledge and take care of more people. And this is really the hope that's been driving us forward. And it's brought new urgency to the purpose-driven work that we're doing. And I think it's hope that we all really need right now. So I guess, you know, what the kinds of questions that we really want to be asking and that we want to be exploring with all of you are, you know, what challenges are you seeing that you think that design could solve? How might we design a better world than the one that we had before?
Yeah, I think this is really, you know, we want to hear from you. You know, it's not all, you know, bad. There's a lot of hope and positive things. So it's like, what out there are you seeing that's giving you hope? Like, we'd love for you to start sharing that. What's inspiring for you? I think, you know, also it's like, what design challenge or what challenges do you think that design can solve? You know, like Madeline was saying, we're all going through these different things and new ways of building these relationships. You know, it's like, it's small things as well as big things. It's like, are we redesigning the voting system, or is it, you know, I'm supposed to be getting married this year, fingers crossed, and you know, I'm introducing like my bridal party on Zoom. I'm like, here you go, everyone, you know, and we're doing like fun presentations and cocktail hours. And yeah, in some ways I've never felt closer to the people that are actually furthest away from me in Ireland and other places. So yeah, please share with us what you think here. But at the end we can, yeah, we'll definitely kind of go over some of those, but you know, we really want to just get into kind of what lies ahead and explore that. And one of the things and the reasons that we're bringing the Lead with Purpose report up is because it's helped us to think through like the different ways that design is going to evolve in the future and post-COVID. So especially when it comes for designing with and for purpose. So I think, you know, as we evolve and, you know, design evolves and we meet these new challenges ahead, you know, we're excited to kind of figure out where that goes. So here's what we're thinking, and we hope to hear from you after.
Yeah, so for the report, professional researchers from Silver Consulting, alongside with students from the IIT Institute of Design, conducted 51 qualitative one-on-one interviews with a diverse set of US-based design and/or business professionals. Throughout those interviews, they identified a set of trends or what they're calling truths that need to be taken into account when thinking about the future of design. Now, one of those truths is that integrity needs to be design's MO. Some of you might be familiar with the Venn diagram for criteria of good design. The researchers thought that for integrity to be mixed in, the diagram needed to expand. So instead of just asking yourself, is it desirable? You know, is it viable? Is it feasible? It needed to expand and ask the questions, is it inclusive? Is it sustainable? And is it just? These additions align with some of the separate research that Salesforce did that links business value and social value for businesses. That research told us that 90% of consumers believe that companies have a responsibility to improve the state of the world. Now, how is design going to help companies get there? Well, human-centered design has been focused on doing right by individual users and customers, but we think that this leaves out the social context, and this is where we think relationships come in. So this pandemic we're in is teaching us a lot of things that maybe we took for granted before. One of those things is just how interconnected we all are. With that comes responsibility and accountability. That's something that we all recognize as we're all sitting at home right now, of course. And something that we think about when we're washing our hands or when we stay 6 feet away from people, or, you know, when we put on masks to go outside. These choices impact us, yeah, but they impact the people around us too, and those people affect us. So we think that the next evolution of design is going to have to do with this interconnectedness. We think that it will center around the relationships that brands build with customers and that people build with each other.
To expand on that thought, prior to reading this this article that has come out, we'd been looking at design across Salesforce, and we have design across every aspect of our customer's journey, from marketing, when they don't realize they have a problem that technology can solve. There are designers dedicated to figuring out what people need to know, when they need to know it, and serving up that message at that time. We have people in our Office of Innovation, and their job is to really understand our customers and their particular business and help them figure out what their vision is for the future. We have obviously our amazing UX and product design people. They are creating a product, making our product low code or no code, like making it as easy for a business to create an ideal experience for their customers built on our product. We have innovation teams for folks that have already purchased Salesforce that, they want it to work better, and they help them figure out the best way forward for their product or service. And so as we were looking across this full spectrum of design that's happening, even environmental spaces, we've got a team dedicated to making our spaces beautiful. And if we were in the office right now, I would pan around, and instead of being in front of a cartoon, you'd see these lovely spaces that even monks consulted on to make sure that we're having a great environment for people to work and live. So as we were looking at the evolution of design at Salesforce, we were realizing that we were looking at new things, and that we were evolving to solve new challenges that we hadn't been facing before. And so as we were talking about it, it seems like we're a part of a new era. Like there is something distinctly different about the world we live in right now. And that design, our process and our approach and our methodology, that the way that we as designers approach things, it seems to be that that's a great way forward for business and our world as a whole. So as we were mapping it out, which is the slide that you're looking at right now, we were looking at how design tends to evolve and how we build off of the previous advancements. So for example, when user experience and UX was new on the block, they were the center, they put people at the center of the product design process, right? So people actually got the products and services that they not only needed, but that they wanted and they enjoyed interacting with. And then service design emerged. And that was because, okay, now that we had designed products that with, an interface that people were getting a lot of value from, service came along and was like, great, let's look at the whole touch point. Let's look at all of them. Like make sure that the person's experience is ideal. And so as we were talking about the qualities that people are looking at now, is this sustainable? We were thinking, gosh, there is something completely different here. We at Salesforce, we talk about relationships a lot because our product is, the whole point of it is so that you're able to build sustaining long-term customer relationships, great customer relationships. And so we've been calling this relationships by design, because it's the process of design that allows you to create a long-standing relationship with your customer that is ethical and equitable and inclusive. So once we identified that we, as all designers across all of Salesforce, were united by the same approach, we gave it a new name. We've been calling it relationship design. I have some wee ones running around in the background, so apologize if there's background noise. So we were looking, the way that we look at it at Salesforce is we're looking at it from, are we using carbon offsets? Or are stickers that we hand out at events, when we have events again, going to be sustainable? Are we being sustainable? Are we being inclusive?
Sweet. One moment, please.
I don't know, go ask that.
It's up there. Go.
You'd introduce her to everybody.
Okay, sorry about that. Are we designing ethically? Ultimately, it's our belief that design adds value to business, and we believe that relationships are create a better business and a better world overall by making sure that you care about people and your relationship with them over time. So this is what we call relationship design, is our stake in the ground of what the new version of design is, but we would love to know what your thoughts are. Specifically, I want to know, how has your role changed as a designer? Are you also seeing things that were reported in this report or that we've been seeing across our own company? Yeah, and at this point, I'd love to open it up for any questions that people have or for discussion.
So one of the things that people have been talking about is this sort of impact. I love this comment about how before people were talking about and actively engaging in moments of care, and that's kind of gone from the individual to larger scale and happening in the professional realm. So definitely people are sort of talking about this shift in perspective that's occurred. And then Ross Brunetti had an interesting question around, I'm curious about how the public's relationship to brands will change. Will brand loyalty still exist after a time, you know, when people just need products? What do you think about that, you know, response to that question?
I think that we look at the way people relate to brands now, and there's research both in this research report and others that talk about how people care about the values that a company holds. And we see with examples like Patagonia, you know, they put a stake in the ground that they believe in the environment, and their business actually, you know, people related to their business even more because they shared the same values. What we've been looking at with our product and our process and how we approach things is figuring out how to not just to create one product, but to consistently over time build a product that serves your customers' needs for the life of your relationship with them. So, you know, we talk about we're at a moment now, right this second, where the virtual worlds and physical worlds are starting to blend. And so, in answer to your question, it seems that you will have an even closer relationship with the brands and products that you use, right? Because as we move into the fourth industrial revolution and things start to be connected, there is no, the products and services that you use are intimately a part of your life. And so therefore you are building a relationship with them, and they owe it to you. The products and brands that they need to be thinking about ethics. They need to do right by their customers, and they need to make sure that they're taking care of the environment. And so it would be an expectation that you would expect from brands and companies what you would expect from a friend in the relationship with them. I don't know if anybody had anything to add.
Well, one person, Terrence mentions, I think the shared experience that the world's going through will allow us to be more authentic. So I think building on that sort of thought about the role of authenticity and the importance of that. He does ask the question, I wonder how our shared definition of authentic and impactful designs will change, like your expectations around that. Maybe someone else could take that question.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point to think about. You know, what does it mean to be authentic? And it's something that, as we're developing relationship design, is really, really core to sort of what we're trying to push forward. Because when you show up, you know, the core of relationship design is really about, okay, how do we invest in our work in people, and not just one person, not just a single user, not just trying to, you know, like thinking about human-centered design and the purpose that has, you know, sort of driven that forward is really around making one person's life easy, convenient, more seamless in their experience. And with relationship design, what we're trying to do is, okay, how do we use a more authentic approach to improving and to improving someone's relationships with other people. And so with like and how do we get at like the core of what is human, which is not just, you know, how convenient our life is and how quickly things sort of come to us and how little we have to think about the choices that we make, but really more investing in the ways that we relate to other people. What does it mean to authentically trust? What does it mean to authentically trust each other, authentically trust a brand, believe that, you know, we're not just being sort of sold to, but actually invested in over the long term. And so I think this question of authenticity and how it ties into trust and relationships and what design can do about it is a really powerful question to be asking. Thanks, Terrence.
I think the other aspect of that one person mentioned was the importance of transparency, and then
Absolutely.
even being more forgiving. You know, as we sort of, David mentioned being encouraged by these awesome human moments that have been sort of foisted upon our professional lives, where you do see the kids running around in the background and things are a little bit less predictable. And not as buttoned up as we are used to and sort of anticipating in a more formal workplace. What are some of the things that people feel that as we sort of shift, hopefully going back to our physical spaces, what elements of what we've been going through do you think will continue? Maybe Elizabeth?
Well, yeah, me personally, you know, I commute into work 5 times a week, and now being forced to work from home, you know, and I'm in a fortunate position to be able to do so. But, you know, do I need to make that commute every day? You know, do I need to contribute to traffic and emissions? Is that important? Does it make me do my job better? I don't know, there's probably a middle ground there. But also Madeline mentioned, you know, seeing into people's homes, right? Like that is not something that we do when we go into work. Meeting their kids on Zoom, saying hi, knowing their faces and their names, having them show us what they did today. You know, these are things that don't normally happen. And I think it's going to contribute to, it all goes back to empathy, you know, knowing people, knowing that relationship, having a different relationship than to what you see as a buttoned up version of that person in the hallways or in meetings, in-person meetings.
And so that's partly your relationship with work. And then one person was talking about how does this shape relationships of design within the company for their own employees. So what might you see in the change of behavior of your relationship to Salesforce or other employers? You know, so there's decisions you make and then things you might expect that in ways that they might change. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that we're hoping to do, which I don't know if this is true of the companies that you all work at, the rest of the people in this audience, but we have our designers are currently all serving a greater purpose of, you know, creating great customer relationships, but we're doing so largely in isolation. The marketing team tends to just do marketing, or the UX org is working on our user experience. So one of the things, the way that we might relate, if I'm understanding the question correctly, is that we'd like to make it so that, you know, you may work in UX, but you see how design is being used in other parts of the company so that we can all learn from each other and create, you know, a better product and service.
Yeah, I think this has also given us a moment to, you know, a lot of our customers are reaching out and asking, is like, well, you know, what should we be doing? You know, it's like you work collaboratively, like these are digital tools. And, you know, it's been a kind of, with this extra time, a way for us to kind of pause and think, I think, you know, what can we be sharing out with the world? Like, what are these design practices? Like we have, you know, all of these teams have got these great resources and this expertise, and how does it help other people to continue to evolve their work too? You know, we're pretty fortunate that, you know, Salesforce has already set us up to work from home if we needed to. You know, we have that flexibility and we have our computers. So I feel like it was a shift, but it wasn't, you know, major in terms of not having the technology or the resources to be able to do it. So that's one thing that I've really loved seeing. And I think it's something that we'll be doing a lot more of, kind of continuing forward as well. It's not just about, you know, sharing with each other in our teams, but it's also, you know, with the world. So I'm excited for more of that.
Yeah, Amanda made the comment about loving the shift. Love the idea of a shift from human-centered to human-connected design. And I think that kind of builds on what you're talking about of looking for that connectedness. So moving from this focus on what distinguish one person's or one group's experience to one which services that which connects across individual experiences, you know, to then create more trust and more impactful results. So she's been calling that human-centered to human-connected design. And I think that really, you know, sort of in a nutshell, wraps up some of the things you're talking about of like, it's not just UX anymore, but, you know, how do we work across and sort of leverage common values and desires. And kind of circling back on brand for just a minute, David mentions when it comes to brand, I'm wondering whether authenticity is really even a choice anymore. Like, life just got really real for everyone. Yeah. So detecting inauthenticity for brands might just be less tolerated here on out. You know, that anything that sort of feels superficial. I mean, look how quickly everyone jumped on the companies that took money for themselves instead of letting it go to small business owners. That was a pretty fast turnaround, really almost within 24 hours, 48 hours of that going out, and seeing, you know, how companies responded to that.
Yeah, I think, and it's like, I know for myself, even, I think a lot of people will think this way. It's like, if you're going to a restaurant that isn't taking care of their employees, or they're not, you know, they're just paying the minimum wage, or, you know, they're not kind of giving them these extra benefits, or, you know, the wage that they think they should be getting. It's like, you know, then they're not getting the education they need. And it's like, there's this knock-on effect that actually just kind of, you know, keeps circling around. So therefore, when there's a pandemic like this, if people don't have the education they need, it's like, they're not going to have, I suppose, the knowledge that this is really serious and to stay in. And then that kind of turns around and impacts you. You know, I know it's like a little circle of life, but, you know, I think it's thinking through all of these things now when you're making these brand choices. It's like, oh yeah, okay, are these people actually making the world a better place? Because in turn, it is going to impact each and every one of us and our kids.
I also think that there's another point here around accountability and specifically around transparency, and that accountability really being based in transparency, which I saw come up in the chat earlier. And part of that is it's also inauthentic not to sort of own up to mistakes, because, you know, another comment that I saw is, you know, brands can't be everything to everybody, and that's absolutely true. But if, you know, with an ingrained purpose to mitigate and reduce harm, especially paid to sort of non-users or communities, and unintended consequences, that being able to sort of authentically take accountability for that impact, even when it's sort of in the short term perhaps seems like a risk to do so. I think that transparency in the long run is going to be really important for building authentic relationships with for brands to build authentic relationships with their customers and also with the public at large. And so I think transparency is and accountability are really kind of core to authentic brand building today.
What do you think about, one person was asking the question around the impact of this on the worldwide workforce tempo? In other words, if we slowly come back to offices and physical spaces, will the urgency to produce become more relaxed? Or, you know, will more thought be able to go into things? What do we think will be sort of the onslaught once we do start returning to our physical workspaces?
I think that, you know, one of the things that we're trying to solve for is figuring out, and if this doesn't answer your question, just please clarify, but, you know, we're trying to figure out that there are best practices that are happening across all the different disciplines of design. And once you get used to asking the question ahead of time, is this sustainable? Is this ethical? Is this being inclusive? Then it becomes a part of your ingrained in your process. And so learning from each other, how each of us is still producing, I don't know that it's going to slow down the rate of innovation or any expectations, but if I can learn to work a new way, then the design that I do and put out in the world will have those qualities. And so taking this moment of pause to sort of understand what's going on as a bigger picture, and how we can work as individuals and as disciplines in the world of design, I think is going to be a great advantage, whether we slow down or speed up when we get back into physical spaces.
So Stephanie Smith talks about the notion of value may shift as a result of the situation as people come out of COVID-19, and there may be more choiceful approach to consumption and activities, which I think is definitely reflected in what people have been saying here, like the role of brand and our relationship to different products and services. You know, part of that can be impacted whether people have lost their jobs or they can't travel. So I guess she was challenging whether the tempo will change or not, or whether it'll be the expectations around the values and the interactions that might change even more than the tempo. I keep wondering if there's going to be sort of a frenetic moment when everybody's like, we're far behind in the second quarter, and everybody tries to get everything done in June and July that they haven't been able to get done. So it'll be very interesting to sort of see how the tempo changes. But I feel like the value relationships may be more. But yeah, Elizabeth, what were you gonna, or Lauren?
I know that we as a team have been talking about worth a lot more and choosing, like, you know, this seemed like a worthwhile conversation that we wanted to have. And so we, you know, we're able to focus our time on it. I wonder if worth becomes a bigger measure. What were you going to say, Elizabeth? Sorry to cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, like, we talk a lot in our team about intention, and so with everything sort of on hold, like for example, events, like right now it seems like every event's gonna happen in the fall, or right, like if everything's happening at that time, whether or not that actually happens, you know, you're gonna have to make a choice. You're gonna have to be intentional about which one you attend. If you have lower capacity to produce whatever your product is, you're going to have to be very intentional about where you spend your time.
Yeah, I think that's, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say sort of, you know, Stephanie's comment around like how the notion of value will change, you know, and there's like sort of the value and the worth in the work that we're doing. And then also thinking about how do we measure value with all of its different facets. And one of the things that we talk about on our team, and as we're like sort of pushing forward the metrics for how to measure the business value of design, we're sort of entangling that, entwining it very purposefully with social value, and sort of tying in with the report, you know, like seeing social value and business value, and our CEO, Mark Benioff, talks about this a lot, about values creating value, and the business of business being to improve the state of the world, and how can we more intentionally sort of link social value as a core metric that we're working towards. So I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and then Amanda was making a comment. There's sort of this conflict's a strong word, but she, you know, she's talking about the new normal may not last indefinitely, because even though there's this opportunity for huge change as we emerge from COVID-19, there will also be sort of the pull of the familiar, of wanting to get back to the things that brought us some level of comfort before. And so we should really take advantage of grasping the moment and help to guide positive impact and influence while everyone's open to change. And I think that that's a really good sort of note to leave on, of just the power of seizing the moment. If you have any last thoughts around, you know, where you would like to see that happen from your team.
I wanted to add just quickly, but what you were just saying, the report that we've been referring to is really worth a read, because it maps out how one actually uses design to create business vision and direction. And so another plug for the research that had been done, that actually sort of covers what you were just saying, Kelly.
Yeah, but, you know, how do we seize the moment? What are some tools we can use, and methods and ways to work with colleagues and make that happen?
Yeah, I think it's just something as simple, like I have Post-its here and it says start, stop, continue, you know, and like literally like, hey, these are some things, you know, and then it's like at the end of this, just like the usual design process, it's like, okay, what do I think is going to be the most impactful? And it's like, we need to do the same on our team, you know, like this has brought to light some things, you know, and I think the same process has happened if it's yourself, if it's your team, you know, if it's the world. And it's just knowing which one of those things is the most important thing to you, and then, you know, holding on to that, I think, and trying to change it is what's important.
Yeah, and I think to sort of echo like kind of what you're all saying, what Amanda's saying here around the openness and the ripeness of this moment to create change, is that also like change happens at the largest level through a lot of really small choices that people make. And I think it's really easy to feel overwhelmed by a system and one sort of small position within it, and not feel the agency that each one of us has in our life and in our work to make a different choice. You know, humans are creatures of habit. You know, we're very, very habitual. And now we're in a moment where we're being forced to change a lot of habits. And I think we can be really thoughtful and intentional about what are the habits, you know, what are the habits we want to lose? What are the ones that we want to replace? Where do we want to be making different choices that are not just better for us, or not just better for one segment of the business that I work for, but really better for the world. And then we all kind of have to look inside of ourselves and feel empowered to make a different choice, and to hold a different objective in our mind as the thing that we want to work towards. So, yeah.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for your time and your presentation, and answering all the questions, and really helping us explore new ways to think about our role in design and how it's evolving with the organizations that we work with. I just want to make certain that everybody knows about next week's webinar. It's Hope Lab, and they'll be talking about their work and their research around technology's role in addressing and mitigating isolation and loneliness in young people, because now that, you know, they haven't been able to socialize with their friends and be with others, that's a huge issue. And then don't forget to join Slack, and you can get access to the newsletter to keep in touch. You'll be able to see the link in the chat. And we really appreciate everyone joining today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all. This was incredible.